Going live. And if y'all see us, give us a thumbs up. 27 waiting. My computer is lagging here. Looks like we're live. Give us a thumbs up if we're live. I don't hear Bear's back chatter yet on his video, so that's usually my... There we go. There we go. Hey guys, we're back. We are back, and it's just Bear and I today, which is quite refreshing, actually. I feel like we've had a slew of guests for months on end.
What do you mean by just?
Exactly. I should say that finally it is us. But good point, Bear. There's never just. No justice, no peace, my friend. Okay, I'm going to hit record and we'll fire this bad boy up. And so excited to be back on Alfacast. Took a week off. Thanks, guys, for the grace that you provide us. Can't always be here, but we try to be here every Thursday at 10 a.m. Okay, I'm going to hit record, Bear. You ready?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my screen view up. Go for it.
Cool.
My computer is not responding. Oh, there.
And you're on the right satellite and all that in your beautiful lab there.
Yeah, and because I'm out here, we might get some interruptions. So if I freeze up, you know what happened. Just wait. Okay. 10 to 30 seconds. I'll be back.
Okay. Hey, Beth Martin's in the chat. Good to see you, Beth. Love you. Hey, Russell. Beth. I'm going to hit record. I got to give some shout outs on recording for all these beautiful people coming in the chat right now. And actually, let me just share to our Telegram. We're live. 1 second here.
A lot of good people on there today. We got JFK Jr., Beth Martins.
JFK Jr.?
Yeah, he's there.
Catherine Austin Fitz, Donald Trump Jr. We got the left, the right, the blue, the red, the green, the reptilian. Here we go. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winter, and I'm here as always with the powerful and beautiful Dr. Bear Paul Lando. There in his lab that seems to be growing every week. I feel like there's new elements in your lab, Bear, and excited to learn more about that today. We're going to touch a little bit on your lab today. It's
actually this is just a green screen behind me here.
Shh, don't give away our secrets, Bear. We're actually in downtown Los Angeles this whole time, and people thought we were on the Smith River. Silly folks. No, we are coming to you live and direct from the great state of Jefferson, where freedom still reigns supreme. And it's just been a lovely, lovely weather. It's like getting to the end of October, and it's the Indian summer. We could use some rain though, so we're going to do our rain dances.
Rain coming early next week. 10 days of rain.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I won't be saying that 6 months from now when you haven't seen the sun for all that time.
I must say I love our rainy season. I was telling a couple of folks last at Music and Sky just how beautiful and lush it gets here with the flowing streams and waterfalls. And when you're at the farm, when you step out on that balcony next door, the views of the snow-capped mountains and which we used to have on our website and all that. We got to get some more media of that because it is actually some of my favorite moments is the winter here in the great state of Jefferson up here in Del Norte County. Today, Bear and I are coming live and direct ourselves, no guest, to dive deep into, well, the history of Alfa Vedic a bit. Bear thought that it would be great to give our audience a bit of context behind what Alfa Vedic is, and I couldn't agree more. And also we'll dissect the NeoScience agenda designed to impede mankind from living scientifically through applied resonance. I love that. I mean, at that we just kind of nailed what Alfa Vedic's all about there. So this is going to be a great talk. We didn't have Alfacast last week. I was on the road down in Cuyama Valley doing Music and Sky. That was a fantastic event. I just want to give a shout out to all of the beautiful bodies and souls that were there from the Alfa Vedic community, especially. It really is this community, Bear, that makes Music and Sky so powerful. Obviously, Matt and Owen, partners that do it, bring so much to the table. Love you guys and all of our other partners that are heavily involved with putting on the event, including the Cielos crew. But really, I think it was very apparent what makes Music and Sky so unique and powerful and different is the community and the really the resonance that comes with everybody showing up from the Alfa Vedic podcast. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, Bear, came up to me and told us how much effect you have and this podcast has had on their lives. It was really quite profound to be there in person with so many souls from all over the country that listen to the show. We had people come from as far as Maine, Vermont, Florida, Georgia, Colorado, where else? So we had people come from Hawaii, of course. In fact, I've got a bar of chocolate for you here, Bear, from the great from Hawaii that I will be delivering.
You better not eat it.
And look at that. My camera just went out on me. So give me a second to figure that out. That is odd. I will reset that. But yeah, it was just an amazing experience to be in person with all you lovely people out there that listen to our show, and to really have that sort of verification or that validation of what we're doing here, Bear. So I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. For everybody who came out and supported us by buying a ticket and being there. And I know the reviews are coming in and people have had profound experiences. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and just switch to FaceTime, my regular camera here, I guess.
Yeah, I want to hear more about it. And I know the audience would like to hear some more about some of the guests and what happened there. But it's true, when people gather in proximity to each other, there's a whole exchange that's hard to duplicate online. You can look into people's eyes, you can, feel the energy from each other, you can really network more effectively and, really create bonds that last a lot longer than when we're just chatting to each other online. I mean, this is a great way what we're doing here. But someday I look forward to getting down there. And we're, Alfa Vedic here at the farm, we're really making great strides in expanding our infrastructure as well as the help we have on site. So Deb and I will actually be able to hit the road someday soon here and join you down there. Yeah.
And also, bring your talents. Like it would be cool to, I always had this vision when I was doing, when I did the other festival in Santa Barbara to have you guys come a little early and do like an installation of sort of and this is maybe a little too much work, but have Deb, do a little installation where we show sort of a trellised Jiaogu lawn, or like how we do permaculture or something where people can walk through a little garden and experience maybe one version of sort of a setup for a garden bed or something, and how you do your sort of geometrical shapes. And I mean, maybe that's a little too intense, but to have your guys' presence there obviously would be massive.
Now, that's actually a good idea. And we could do something like that easily. We could do, some of the things we do here on the farm and show people how you can test for orientation of the plants and then, create a resonance with objects around it in different shapes and numbers, and then retest the plant, that you're putting in the center of it, and then see how the energy of the plant changes as well. So it's fun stuff. And, here in our expansion with our little business center, we're also creating a glamping site back in the meadow there, where the bears hang out and steal all our blackberries. And but we'll have a fence around it. We're going to have a new trellis area. So the glamping area. Oh, geez. Yeah. Why do they always call? Goodness.
Hey, they love you.
Yeah.
That's probably an Archon. Go ahead and send Send a
Okay.
voicemail.
So anyway, people will be able to glamp, right in the middle of the trellises, and it'll be kind of fun. So yeah, good idea.
Well,
but go on.
Well, people, so EW is like, I'd love to come do the woofer thing at Bears and drive back and forth like a gypsy across the country, spreading something for Alfa Vedic, meetups, etc. We are getting there, guys. We're getting there. Mark Guyver has been really performing a lot of magic on the land and with his skill sets. And we will have the ability to, that is a focus, right, Bear, to have a woofer program set up, an educational program, so people can come on land and help us. And of course, we give back to them through education and through our resonant love and all that. So that is in the works, Bear.
Yeah. And we're going to do our own version of the woofer, where we want to do an exchange where, we get desperately needed help here, but also have people that really want to do it as a learning exchange. So it's not just somebody coming and hanging out and, digging trenches or doing whatever we need here, but, people that want to come maybe see, what it takes to create their own little growing spot and, do all the things we do here. And that being said, Deb and I, as I've mentioned a little bit, is we're launching a new video series, and we intended to do it earlier, but we thought it would be a good idea to wait till late fall here, because we're right past the harvest. I'll show you a little camera shot here later. We're just drying in my big dehydrator here in the lab, the last of our harvest. And so we're going to get more into those creative things, including this video series. So just be short segments, maybe 5 to 20 minutes at most, where we're walking around, and every day, not every day, but maybe once, twice a week, we'll release these. And every day will be a different topic, and it will be related to what we actually do here in order to go into preparation for the next season. Right now, we're inundated with leaves, from elm trees and all that, but we don't just burn them or get rid of them. We rake them up, and then we take the mower, we got big piles, and we make mulch out of it. So we'll be, mulching the beds, to protect them from winter temperatures, and then also, to create soil for the next year. And it'll take us right through the winter, because we work all winter long. It's a little bit different, but that's a time we do a lot of indoor creative work, but also outdoors, creating more infrastructure. I'll be creating plant beds, whenever the weather isn't too crazy, building the new fence, which, oh man, I got to start digging holes again, which is horrible, through this river rock here. And so, for the new section, we're going to be doing an amazing amount of landscaping. The business center officially is inaugurating Zone 2. And we just secured a guy that's really good with the tractor. So he's going to finish our pond, which is over in Zone 3. Then in the forest there, we're going to have some more little quarters for people behind the pond. And anyway, we've got 5 zones to go. Zone 1 here, we've been working on 6 years, and we're about 80% done. So it's a lot of work here, but it'll be fun, because people will just be able to look over our shoulder, see what we do through the seasons. In the wintertime, late winter, we'll also be in the greenhouse propagating. I'm building a geothermal out by the new business center, because it's in a good sunny spot for the winter. Gets the south exposure. I'm doing a geothermal cold frame, so we'll be able to, get seeds and starts and everything going, and even, grow edibles to get us through the winter here. And then that'll take us into the actual green or planting, at the beginning of the spring season, all the things that we're starting late winter through the height of the summer. And then finally, to what we just finished here, which is late summer, early autumn, where we're actually picking things and processing them. So that's going to be kind of fun. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's quite an adventure seeing where Alphabetics come to where we are now from where we started. And I'd love to go into that history a bit and really, I'm very proud of us, of what we've done. I mean, we're a small family outfit, and we've reached, I don't know how many people across the world. I mean, just seeing how many people came to Music in Sky from all over the country. And we've done a lot. We've done a lot with a small crew. And I think, as we've stressed before, Bear, This is a model that we hope is repeatable by everybody listening that's inspired by this. So you can go out and find what your passion is, what your creative drive is, and create a business around it that is sustainable, that is on the land, and that will help benefit your family and friends, right? That's the model.
Yeah, and we did it. You know, it's labor intensive, but we brought a lot of experience to the game. It wasn't our first one. This is our fourth homesteading, project. So every time we learn a little bit more, we can talk a little bit. I want to hear more about Music in Sky, but we can talk a little bit later about the whole timeline of what led us up to this point. And it's a lot of years, and we've of course got a lot of wonderful help, and now we actually have a cohesive company on it. But it's not just for the exclusive purpose of conducting commerce, but to create the commerce as a real integral cog in the permaculture wheel, so that you're not dependent on outside sources, grants from any other thing other than generating your own revenue to expand your own project, and then to show how people can do that. They can, be completely self-sufficient. Speaking of self-sufficient, you're telling me about Larkin Rose, who has the true self-sufficiency lifestyle that most of us, might have a hard time actually walking or talk to that level. So tell us a little bit, maybe starting with him, and then some of the other guests that were there. I really want to connect with the Anastasia people, Gabriel more. I've been so busy, and if anybody in those circles is listening, and Gabriel, I really want to get more involved with you guys. I love what you're doing. It's really kind of what we're doing too. And I'd like to really mesh with each other's projects and us get on board with you guys and be part of that larger, international, focus on creating these little 2-acre homesteads. We're bigger than 2 acres. But 2 acres is even easier for the average person to achieve than what we're doing here. So go ahead, Mike.
I'm getting chills right now, Bear. My whole body is electrified because of just seeing how people are being attracted to the Kins domain idea. And that's why after we had Gabriel and Wes on Alfacast, I was called to invite them to Music in Sky, because this is the future, right? And this is in perfect alignment with what you were just explaining about Alfa Vedic. And to have them out there was really powerful. And I will touch on that and what happened also with the orgonite we brought over from Mitch. I want to give a huge shout out to Mitch, the orgone donor. He donated 1/4 ton of orgonite to the event. Sam, our buddy, went out, who's been at the farm and who's a dear friend, went all the way out to Arizona and picked it up and drove it back to the event. And I guess I'll get into Larkin in a second too, but I think I told you about this, but this is crazy. If you guys need any more evidence, or at least another tangent, what's the word I want to say here? I guess it's not, direct scientific evidence, but this was an experience many people had related to the orgonite. So we have the orgonite coming into the valley. This is a dry valley in an upper elevation in a high desert zone in what I call Southern California. I guess they call it Central California, but it's really Southern California to me, in Santa Barbara County. Very dry. So I get there Wednesday night, and there's crazy puffy clouds everywhere coming right over us. And it's cooled down. And before I know it, it starts misting on us. And then by midnight, that night, we have thunder and lightning over the valley, Bear, with insane thunder, lightning striking basically the land we're on, and then torrential downpour of rain.
Did the black helicopters show up too?
We'll get into that. We had some... I didn't even told you this. I don't think I told you about all the weird stuff happened. UFOs. Teo had a vision of a figure. We had sort of like what I call a dust circles instead of a crop circle happen. So lots of weird stuff happened. But that was crazy. So 4 a.m, I come out of the trailer, wind blowing, torrential rain. It's tropical almost. It's warm out, lightning striking. We're doing the count, and it's like not even a second, when you count after the lightning strike and the thunder. So right over us in the valley. And then this continues in through the morning into the day. We have rain coming here and there. It's like Hawaii style, where it just kind of comes in and leaves. it was like this, the valley was healing. Kelly Brogan shows up with Alex Zek. They're in line, in queue, and it's kind of a little chilly and rainy. And I'm like, Kelly, what's up? She's like, what is going on with this weather? I'm like, we brought all this orgonite in and it's raining. And she's like, you better get that stuff out of here. I came here to get in the pool and dance in the sun. But it was really quite profound, Bear, that as Sam was bringing the orgonite into California, I guess this whole weather pattern came in. And it wasn't just over us. It came in through the whole valley. People were saying it came in by Ojai and off the coast and all that. So that was pretty cool, man. Like the people that live there and work there were saying they've never seen anything like that before.
Way cool.
Yeah. So that's how we started. And then actually our friend Josh Del Sol said he was having a dreams at that time too of thunder and lightning, which was very interesting. He was still up in Seattle and he was going through a whole process he talked about in his talk where he was purging and had migraines. So there was a massive energy vortex that was going on with this event. And we had some powerful people in. So Larkin and his beautiful partner, wife, Amanda Rose, were there. For those who know Larkin, he has been a stalwart defender of the voluntarist aesthetic and to the point where I forgot he had served time. He served like a year in prison or quote unquote tax.
I followed him for a long time. I read all his early books. He's done great videos. Yeah, he's awesome. And I share his voluntarism. If I had to put myself in a label box, that's kind of closely where I reside.
Yeah. And so it was very important for and so to the credit of our partners, Owen Colgan and Matt McMahon, who founded Music and Sky with myself, and of course Alfa Vedic playing a major role in that. They saw the value in having Larkin there because we want to balance this sort of spiritual side with the grounded philosophy of something like voluntarism, because that is, core to the principles of freedom. And that's what this, event's all about: freedom and love and community. So we actually, booked him for an odd time. People thought Friday night at, I think it was 10 or 11 at night, because the kids were asleep. Everyone could focus. It was kind of like prime time. On the main stage, he was, and he had a captivated audience. And he comes out with the title of my talk is "Love is Not the Answer." It was really funny because we're at this like lovey-dovey kind of thing that, in many people's respects, we're coming to heal and to hug. There's so many hugs. And I opened it up saying, hey, you guys may be triggered by this talk, but it's super important. And he crushed it. He crushed it because he really put forth an amazing argument, or not even an argument, but a logical thesis on why government is not justified ever. And people were giving, and he's funny too. He's got this sort of casualness about him. He's really funny. So he delivered a great talk. All of this is recorded, by the way. It's all going to be available. And man, Bear, his wife is lovely. They're going to come on Alfacast. We talked about it. I want them to come up to the farm and hang with you and Deb. You guys will hit it off so well. They're just real humans. Real men and women, living men and women that are just legit, like totally legit. Larkin just sat at his table the whole weekend and sold his books. He was quite content sitting there, and he was very approachable. So anybody could come up and talk to him. He got in a spirited debate with the Q&A after the talk of a gentleman proposing that the government is justified in some means and that it's the corporations. And there's a lot of misunderstanding, of course, what corporations are. And Larkin is a beast in debates. Like, I've never seen that guy lose a debate. So anybody trying to debate that dude, good luck. But yeah, beautiful soul. So lovely having them there. And then, of course, I didn't know this. Amanda is a semi-professional trapeze artist. So she had brought her silks with her, which was amazing. She ended up hanging her silks in the wellness stage where all the kids were hanging out and doing workshops. And so she ended up guiding a bunch of young boys and girls on their first sort of foray into trapeze and air, arts, the aerial arts. And so she was having a blast, and she and Larkin both said, well, Larkin was funny. He said, hey, I usually don't do the whole like click thing, like hanging out with, in like groups kind of thing. But if I was to pick a group, this would be the one. So that was a huge testimonial to what Music in Sky and what we're all about. And then Amanda, she said that, people have talked about doing this type of event, having this vision, building a community that's based in love and resonance, and also, with the voluntarist aesthetic. Nobody's really done it. You guys are doing it. So they're in. She's like, we're coming to all your events. We're going to actually try to support them too, selling their books as an affiliate, really help them out. So it was such a pleasure having them there, Bear.
Yeah, amazing. And, Larkin is so correct. And I think the only distinction that needs to be made with his thesis is that which government are you talking about? A local council of a community, that has representatives from that community that goes in and decides what to do, gathers the resources of the community, including elbow grease, funds, whatever it takes to, fix a road or something. It shouldn't even be called government because, of course, we know the true meaning of government, which is mind control. So,
I did yell out to that guy who was trying to you'll hear it in the recording. You hear me in the back going, government is mind control. Anyways.
Yeah, I saw a great interview with Ron Paul. We have a history. We used to put on events way back in the day. They were overseas. We'd get in 4,000 or 5,000 people, in person, and we'd have amazing guest speakers and things that we offered there. One year we had Ron Paul before he was, Republican. He was just an independent libertarian. And, great comment he made. I saw, in later years when he was on a news show, he was arguing with somebody about the legitimacy of government, and the individual challenging Ron said, well, think about it on the way home, when you're driving on roads that are built by the government. And Ron Paul said, oh, yeah, thanks for the warning. So, government doesn't give us anything. They have no authority. They don't produce anything. All they do is steal from us and give us minimal in return. And what they do give us usually doesn't work. It's overpriced. And, true government, if we could only find a different word for that, is supposed to start with us at the local level. There's no need ever for government. If we have county and state militias, for the unfortunate circumstance that we're invaded on our own borders, like we are right now presently, then you deal with that. However, if there's something happening somewhere else in the world, it's none of our business. Nobody has to come steal our money in order to pay for a war somewhere else. So obviously it's so far astray that, it's not even resembling in any way a government by the people, for the people, and so forth. So Larkin's awesome.
Plus the road
is awesome.
The roads thing, that's all done by private contractors. It's all, it's in private enterprise. And then of course they love it because they get the bid the government, which is just cronyism. And so it just leads to waste. It leads to crime. It leads to grift. Where if you did have a free marketplace where people put in bids and competed for that job, instead of having their brother who's in a state legislator or who's in the county supervisor who, slaps his back, hey, I got you the job, and plus we're gonna pay you a ridiculous amount of money to build a bridge. It's so obvious. The people that argue the roads thing, I just like shake my head and be like, are you kidding me?
That's brainwashing at its finest. Pay your fair share. All the stuff. I just get so cringed out when people say that. So continue on, Michael.
Yeah, Murray Rothbard. If you guys ever want to go deeper into that sort of stuff, Murray Rothbard, I love him. He really is fantastic explaining how the market fixes everything. It was radical enough to say that the market should be that the oceans could be privatized. So that was amazing. And then to extrapolate this idea of leadership and governance, Paula Pratt, our dear friend Paula Pratt, she stepped into her power at this event. We did a 2-part workshop, or really it was supposed to be a 3-part workshop. And it was a community workshop where we had 2 big whiteboards, and she had this beautiful poster about sovereign, I called it sovereign somatics, or somatic sovereignty, excuse me, about using somatics and our innate ability through our body's innate intelligence to be our own leader, and to understand how people are triggered and how we are triggered, and how to work through those triggerings so that we can get past the conflict, find resolution, and then lead ourselves, right? So she did this amazing workshop in the speakeasy, and it was packed, and she stood into her own power. And she is now basically using this as a model, as a microcosm for where we can spread across the world. So we are developing leadership circles through Music in Sky. People were basically volunteering to step into roles. And then we are setting up contracts, basically community contracts, and how we can keep each other on point and hold each other accountable to self-lead and have self-directed leadership moving forward. And this isn't just for the event. This is for literally how we can take the themes and the mentality out of the event into the real world. So how we could
membership by agreement, and all parties are aware of both sides of the agreement, and you come to a meeting of the minds. I was really happy to meet Paula. You know, she came up here for our I Am the Living Law workshop. So she's awesome. And did she actually, now somatics, you know, typically means also using body movements in order to release those things. And if there's any notion within our consciousness that we have to do what we're told, or that we're stifled or controlled on any level, then that has to relay into our musculoskeletal system, and that will create symptoms. So somatics, you know, I was involved in that back in the original somatics group, back in the 70s. And, you know, it works brilliantly. I do it myself to this day. And through those movements, you're constantly releasing these control mechanisms that then come in and limit your health, limit your movement. And if a powerful spiritual being, as we all are as individuals, has a creative stifling on any level, that is the beginning of all of what ails us. So we have to get rid of that. And I want to talk to Paula more and see exactly how she's applying that.
Paula did this really cool exercise where she went through a triggering example, and we had us all triggered, and we felt in our body that the sort of physical process of the triggering. So for me, every time I really get triggered, you know, emotionally or whatnot, something that I'm going through, it starts sort of in my shoulders, then kind of comes up into my face, and then blows up through my head. Right. And so we were going through each individual's sort of process of that, physically feeling that, and then how we can ground that and recognize that and accept that. And what was really cool too is we intertwine that with human design, because Yerasimos and Sophie, who we've had on Alfacast, who are beautiful, beautiful couple. They're in Topanga. They have been supporting Music in Sky in a major way, and I love them dearly. We need to have them up here, Bear. You will, in the person hanging out with these two are amazing. So we did that Alfacast on human design and somatics with them, and we had them start they were like one of the first talks of Music in Sky this year on human design, so that we could understand, like, okay, you're a projector, you're a manifesting generator. This is how you deal with triggers. This is how you deal with this stuff. And so we can start to understand each other in a way that we can work with each other in this community and have, you know, some grace and, you know, a higher understanding of how each person is unique and different and how we deal with this stuff. So it was really cool, man. Yeah.
And we'll cap off this talk today with a little bit about what living scientifically really means. And what you're describing with Yerasimos and Sophie is actually there's a science behind it, but you can't appreciate it, let alone apply it, unless you understand how things work. So we won't get too nerdy about it, but we'll definitely go into, you know, the whole technological realm, our place in it, and how we can start living scientifically. And then, of course, the reason why we don't live scientifically at the moment, most of us, is because of what we call science, and what now I'm terming NeoScience.
I love that.
Which, prevents us from understanding ourselves and who we are. So, we have such unfathomable power, and it's really time for us to start acting like it, because, we're at the culmination point now. And if we don't, then other people will continue doing all the things they're doing. So it's really, really important that we get together like you guys did. We keep doing these things and just learn, share.
Yeah.
That's right. Go ahead. You want to say something?
To your point, Brandon here in the chat said, my favorite part of Music and Sky was eating with friends around campfires. So simple, right? Can't describe how wonderful that feeling is. The simple act of coming together in a meal, whether doesn't matter what you're eating. The food, by the way, was off the hook there. The chefs and the people putting on the food was really important to us. So thank you, Cielos. But yes, coming in person and in having that sort of resonance together, it was just so profound. We have Russell Anderson in the chat. Bear, we just did the primary water talk with he and Chris, Cosmic Sojourner. They were both there for the whole event. That was powerful. They did an amazing fireside chat the first night that I hosted, and really had a captivated audience about the spiritual side of primary water. It wasn't just nuts and bolts, where it is underneath the mantle and the transmutation. It was, they elevated the talk to something that was quite profound. And it was in conjunction with the Emoto Institute's International Water Festival that started that night. So Russell and Cosmics led a group up into the hillside to do a medicine wheel, where the aim was to pull primary water out of the ground, because there was a connection in that area with Ojai and the wheel and the what's it called, the fire, the what do you call it, the ring of fire, and that there is an old volcano there in Ojai, and that it's a magical land. There's actually a lot of Native American land where we were, so it was just all worked out and just perfectly. And so Russell, in the chat right now, man, thank you so much for bringing who you are and all of your decades of experience to the community. You were a major highlight. And I know you had a great time too. And thanks for all the wonderful words in the chat about the event. And we do have that medicine wheel still there. People are documenting it. I haven't checked to see if water is precipitated up or not. We need to double check on that again. The water comes up. We're sending it to Japan, Bear, to have them test. The Emoto Institute wants to test it. So that's real science.
Fantastic.
Right? So,
absolutely. And Russell, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you out there, and thanks for showing up at the event. We look forward to talking to you more. I do, certainly, and hopefully maybe even seeing you up here someday. The water thing is huge. Well, next week we have George Wiseman on, who's going to talk about the fourth state of water, which is plasma state, also known as Brown's gas, and its implications for health. What we will be doing here in this lab, and I have to start in springtime. I'd like to do it now, but I need to collect water in the first spring rains, when the constellations are favoring Aries, because we need that new beginnings kind of energy. It's really important whether you're planting or collecting water or whatnot. But the whole purpose of our experiment, which I think is a real critical part of understanding what water is, this primal water, and everything that people like Russell understand. But also we have to understand that there are actually components to water, and we're not just talking about hydrogens and oxygens. We're talking about elements that we would appreciate more from an old kind of dissection of the ether, the levels of the ether, and what happens at each level of that ether. So when you collect rainwater in particular at a certain time, right here in the lab, we can separate the three attributes of water and then put it through some very elaborate processes. We talked about this a little bit when we were talking with Russell. And then we can also really test and demonstrate that each of those attributes, even though it's water that we started with, nothing added or subtracted, it actually tests different and is a different thing, and it can be used medicinally. So, there's water as a living consciousness. And when you understand what makes up that consciousness, now you can separate those components on an energetic level. You can purify them. You can refine them. You can take, levels of components from the components, where you end up with about 12 different separate attributes of that water. Each one can be used in different medicinal ways. They can be tested. So I really want to do that. I want to have it chronicled and just documented, so we can contribute something here to show that no, there's much going on with water here that we can't even imagine. And when you appreciate what we're talking about, then you're going to understand the work of people like Veda that are finding forms and things that, imagery in water, because those elements, that living recording intelligence, will pick up all those things. And why it's so important when you're drinking a water or water of any kind, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, that you use different colors consciously to project with your visualization into that water, that will create any effect on your body or any level of your being that you wish. And that's what I want to finish off with today, and really develop further in our member section and also for future podcasts, so that we can really understand how to start living scientifically, not need any kind of medicines or even herbs or things. We can all do it with our visualization if we can really focus and be disciplined enough to hold that focus to create a particular qualitative aspect through color and create any change in our body, the substance we eat or drink. And then you're really sovereign, because you're not dependent on anything or anybody, you're not even alternative medicine.
Yeah. Yeah. I brought our water with us. So I took the water from the spring by the farm. I collect that in these big, beautiful jugs, and I took it with us. So we were drinking our water from here the whole time we were there. It's so amazing that people are waking up to this. There was a lot of talk about water over the weekend, and the resonance, the connection, the consciousness. So it was so cool to see the 4 elements at play. We had the grand fire there, which was a center point every night. And this thing was massive. We actually did a live podcast there because unfortunately Ayla Cuenca was going to come to talk about free birthing and sovereign birthing. And she came down with some illness, or she wasn't feeling good when she flew to LA. So she couldn't make it. And so on the spur of the moment, we decided to do a live podcast with Alex Zek, Chance Garton, who wants to we need to have on Alfacast. The guy is just so next level. We've both been on his show, Bear, on Interverse. And also Kelly Brogan, who was there. She was like, I'll go on. So she wasn't even going to talk. She ended up joining this live podcast. And then the great Eileen McCusick, who was there, who fully embodies what it means to be a scientist. And it was a really cool live podcast. Chance kind of led it, and he's such a pro. And we talked a lot about all the stuff we talk about here, and it was around that fire, though. So it was like this beautiful element of the fire, of course, the air element, because we're under the stars, insane Milky Way over us, or whatever we want to call that, the firmament glistening above us. And of course, it had rained on us. We're talking about primary water, and then grounding. I'm barefoot the whole weekend. The sandy ground was amazing. We're kind of in this high desert. So the 4 elements were very prevalent. And then the 5th element, spirit, ether, however you choose to define it, was
quintessence. It's an old term.
I love that. That was what was connecting us all. And it was almost like we were psychic. Like when I needed something, I didn't have to get on the radio. I turn around and someone from the team is there. It was really quite cool on how connected everything was and how seamless and effortless things were. Now, I was working my ass off. People who were there can attest. Yes, I was on my one wheel running around it, going, putting fires out. I mean, when you're doing an event, there's a lot to do. And also we had like, I don't know. I don't want to say how many kids were there. I don't know, because it was hard to know because we didn't count anyone under 5. I would say 45 kids there at least. So it was a village. There was a lot of kids running around, which was awesome. But those were the highlights for me for Music in Sky. Feel free to drop, in the chat, any other empowering stuff. Oh, so my son Mateo had a vision the first night. He went up. So the location was like in this really cool small valley, and it was ringed by these hills and mountains, the actual venue. So it was like a little hovel, if you will, and it protected us from the elements. And so you could just quickly hike up to these hills and see the sunset. So Mateo was there early. We were there a day early. He had his mountain bike. He had the lay of the land. He was just crushing it. He was shadowing me. He was on the mic. He was dropping jokes. He was being little mini me on stage. He was having the time of his life. And Thursday night, he went up on top of the hill as the sun was setting and said he saw a figure floating, coming to him, floating like a Jesus-like figure. And then he went to find someone to tell this person's up there floating, and then couldn't find anybody. Ran back up. The figure was gone, and the sun was like making these motions, these moving motions in front of him. So he had this profound, visionary experience, and he came running down. And the first person I believe he saw was Chance Garton, and told Chance this, and then he found me, and his eyes were like saucers. So Teo can be a storyteller, but that seemed like a very legit experience. We had multiple people see UFOs. Edith's son, Kabreem, saw a UFO. Multiple adults saw literally hovering lights in the air, stuff flying over the valley. We had people's tents being shaked and vibrating Saturday night. And then Sunday morning, in the RV camp, where it's all sand, there were these geodesic circles with this sort of Aztec-looking geometrical patterns that were all the same, that were probably, I don't know, 10 inches, 12 inches in diameter, everywhere, stamped into the sand, everywhere, within probably 100-foot square radius around where these people were camping, where I was camping. And there was these ladies that were there with Eileen McCusick that were half jokingly saying we were trying to bring in some sort of alien or UFO, because we're looking out over this valley for forever, and it's just stars. So they're like, oh, we could probably, intentionally bring in something from space or whatever. So there was something there. People took pictures of it. It was almost like a crop circle, but these imprints in the sand. And I was trying to rationally think about what it could be. Was it a bottom of a bucket or something? But this would have to have been someone who was like a sociopath to go around and do this everywhere in perfect alignment. So it was something, a lot of witnesses to it. Very interesting. I was thinking cymatics, maybe. A couple other people brought up cymatics. That was some kind of cymatic geometrical shape. But a lot of people saw it. Gabriel Miguel and Wes came and looked at it. Eric Casano, all the staff of Cielos were tripping out on it. So it was really interesting, dude.
Yeah. Whenever you get out of the city lights, you see a lot of things in the sky. Where Deb and I sleep at night, we have an open view of the sky above us, and there's just an amazing amount of things going on up there, and a lot more than just Elon's helium balloons floating around. So, and then of course, when you get into the work of Trevor Constable and some of those folks, they explain it's not like folks that are traveling here from far off Dagobah system in outer space or something. It's interdimensional travel. And early on in my life, working with other people, I had the same experience as Trevor, where we learn how to communicate on those levels. Also learn how to protect yourself, because not everybody in those levels is, plays nice. So you want to protect yourself. But there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of beneficent beings that are working for us, waiting to catch our attention. And especially when a group of people comes together and does it as a group, it's very powerful. And then as far as shapes in the sand, there's no other way it can happen other than through the principles of cymatics, because that's what the law of creation, how it works on every single level universally. So you're just talking about resonance, and obviously there must have been some kind of conductance of a resonance that's creating those geometric forms. So it shouldn't stretch anybody's imagination at this point, how those things can occur. It's very rudimentary. These kinds of understandings are available for all, just all across YouTube, the internet, listening to people like ourselves. And that's what, you know, we really want to talk about here, is that it's time that humanity wakes up and just really starts living scientifically, and not just you know, hoping to see some phenomena now and then, but consciously create that phenomena. That's what we're here to learn how to do.
One other point about this event that I really want to stress, and Kathy, who's in chat, who had an amazing experience. Thank you for all the comments right now, Kathy. I know you had some, she's saying she was visited by my ancestors in a vision in my tent on Saturday night. We had a lot of that sort of back and forth with people. We're having visitations. There was a gal who was having some, you know, some health issues when she was there and thought she'd have to leave. And Owen actually took care of her, got her some body work or some healer attention. And then she said she had archangels visit her in her tent, and she had a profound life-changing experience where she's a different person now. This was happening to a lot of people at the event. This was a very sober event. So I want people to understand, like, everyone was really kind of getting high on their own supply and off each other.
So was it Burning Man?
It was not Burning Man. In fact, we had our friends Kent and Kemi come from Santa Barbara, who did a bunch of installations, who are burners, who have, you know, we were chatting later. He's like, Kent was like, this is the first event, and not that he's a rager by any means, but he's like, where I am having a time of my life without any substance. And that was like a concurrent theme. And, you know, that was true with me too. Occasionally back in the day, I would drink alcohol or smoke a J or, you know, do other, you know, psychedelics. Nothing. I was sober and I was high as I could be. I was flying off the vibrations of that land and of those people in the community. I played 2 DJ sets, stark sober. One of Friday night was one of the best DJ sets I've played in a decade. It was recorded. It will be put out in the Speakeasy, which was a soundproof nightclub it was amazing. They did a double insulation there, so you couldn't hear it outside, but inside it was beautiful sound system design. So I wanted to stress that to people who might not really be aware of, like, sort of the aesthetic or the intentionality of this event. Yes, there are aspects of the party. We have live music. We have a lot of fun. But people there are yes, people brought beers. It was, you know, obviously it's not like, you know, everyone's got their own thing. But for the most part, there was a lot of sobriety and a lot of intentionality and a lot of healing and a lot of high vibes off each other. And I think that's what makes this community so amazing. We were dancing late night, had a circle going in the club, people getting grooving out. And most people there they weren't on drugs. They were just high on life. And I love that about this event.
Sounds awesome.
Okay, guys. Well, that was Music in Sky. You can go to musicandsky.com to get more information. We're going to be putting out all the talks and everything on the platform that's launched. I'm wearing the new Music in Sky Soul Family Gathering sweatshirt, which you can order online. You can pre-order that. We'll have some more swag on there too. Thank you guys so much for coming. And we will be doing announcing when the next event is. And then, of course, with Alfa Vedic, we have like our mushroom workshop this weekend. We were talking about this a little bit yesterday, Bear.
Edible mushrooms.
Yes. This is a permaculture based food forest inoculation, right, type of mushroom. This is not magic mushrooms or anything like that. But the in-person events at this time are so important. It's something we're focusing on at Alfa Vedic, obviously with Music in Sky, and then having just meetups and stuff, satellite meetups with people you've met at Music in Sky. So important with the Alfa Vedic community as well. We try to do those. So guys, get together in person with the new Alfa Vedic platform. That will allow us to find where we are in the world and meet up. And then also with the Music in Sky platform, community.musicandsky.com as well. Alex Zek has an idea, Bear, where we want to federate all these communities. I kind of came up with this idea too, where we have the Music and Sky community, the Devin Vrana Big Idea community, the Alex Zek, the Way Forward community, the Alfa Vedic community. They're all separate and sovereign, but to have a single site where we can all recommend each other, like join this, and be connected that way. And then also have a kind of a friend finder idea where it's not using specific zip code in terms of it's not, connecting you to the system where you're, losing your privacy, but a way that we can find each other. We have to figure this out so that we can have more in-person connection, because really so powerful to do that.
What I really want to see, maybe at the next event, I must be able to pull it off. We can get some folks to go man a tent down there. Maybe I'll even be there at the same time. And we'll feature, a whole kind of smoothie, herbal tea, elixir, tonic elixir bar.
Badly needed. You're
did I?
Yeah, you broke up there. Obviously that's always been our plan. And as we're building up the infrastructure here and the support, that would be a major hit. We did have a lot of people asking for us to have that there every year. So that would be huge to have, of course.
Yes. And we're getting there. Unfortunately now, or not unfortunately, but it's just the way it is, I kind of maintain the infrastructure, more the brick and mortar side of our business. So I have to stay here at the farm, and we're right in the middle of harvest. But, again, we're growing, we're getting help. Our infrastructure is expanding. So we'll be there definitely. And, our history, tell me if I freeze up, Mike, because I'm noticing that's happening a lot now. The history of our company was based on, starting with Deb and I, a long time ago, many decades ago, with just these kind of creations, in the world of nutrition. We started in sports. People that don't know my wife, Deb, she was the very first one in Marin County. We lived out in rural Marin County at the time, but she had a business that was the first aerobics exercise classes. And that kind of emanated from Marin, and her and a partner, were the first ones in that county. And then if you anybody ever remembers Est, the guy, what was his name? Werner Erhard. Took them on because he wanted to get into not just self-improvement, like he was doing down at Esalen there, but he also wanted to get in the whole fitness craze, and Deb was at the beginning of that. At the meantime, I just finished my football career, and I was kind of a full-time dojo gym rat. And I also learned a lot just with nutrition by using my own body as a laboratory. So we simultaneously had a business out of a health club, a gym, where we had a bar where we had, people lined up behind the counter making drinks, multiple blenders going. So it was like a big hit. And we were like the first ones out in those nutrition kind of bar experiences. And now you see tonic bars all over the place. But we were doing it. That was back in the 70s, before Bryden was born. It's actually before we were married. We were still living in sin with each other. So anyway, we did that. And, that was, I was working in emergency medicine. I wasn't even alternative medicine, but it was all based on a whole athletic background. And I had a nutritional consulting business. After that, we went into alternative medicine. And the alternative medicine, of course, I picked up all the tools of the trade of all the things I did all those years. And that further grounded it in with not just nuts and bolts nutrition, but understanding, with the bioterrain medicine and so forth. But over the years with clients, I noticed that there was not a sufficient foundational nutritional company out there, that made really good stuff that was of the quality I needed. So I just started making custom blends for all my clients that would support the bioterrain principles or protocols that I put people on. And years later, when we came back to the mainland and I had my little practice down in Santa Barbara there, people started asking me, well, hey, can you, put this in bags and all that kind of thing. And so that's what we did. And that became the first company and Mike, you were working with us back then. It's called Mattole Valley Naturals. And then I wanted to take that to the next level, and that eventually became Alfa Vedic. That's where you, Brian, we decided to package that and make it into a commercial enterprise. But Alfa Vedic, that's how we started putting things in boxes and bottles and jars. And there's a lot more coming that, we haven't even released yet. But the real emphasis of Alfa Vedic is to be agricultural based and be a teaching platform. And through those years, my wife also had 2 very large and successful plant nurseries. And she also had a landscaping business where she would apply what she, sold and taught people through the nursery and do people's estates. She'd do little permaculture centers. She was already doing permaculture training. In more recent years, we did the formal permaculture certification, master gardener, all that, just for kind of trim, because we really didn't need to go in and formalize it, but we did. So we've also, right now in our
Did Bear freeze up for you guys? That's a kind of a serious freeze. I don't know if that's me or Bear on the chat.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me where you lost me.
Back at the permaculture thing, kind of with Deb.
Yeah. So anyway, all of that is what the foundation of Alfa Vedic is. It's really what the company is. And that legitimizes what we're doing because we've been there. We gathered information, we put that to practical application, got the experience, and that's how you gain knowledge. We just happen to have been doing it for a long time now. There's a lot of companies out there, everybody's selling things and talking about things, and that's fine. A lot of good folks. However, we just want to really let people know that we are here at this present state of, our offerings because we've done it. And we aren't just talking about it. So, whether it's the products or, the workshops we do, we're just in it right now to pass on what we've experienced. So that's a little bit of the Cliff Notes summary of Alfa Vedic and why we're doing. And we're just getting started now with, Mike, with yourself and my son and other people that are joining forces. It's, of course, expanding. And that was, my original concept, my vision was to be international because my clinic was always international. And we want to make a very huge impact, not in a commercial sense so much, but so that we can really, serve the purpose of the higher agenda here. And we are undergoing an amazing shift on the planet. And it's, those of us that have kind of been trailblazers in the past, it's really incumbent to us to work with all the next generations and to really build this thing anew, because everything is crumbling. That's not even a question. It's not when, it's already happened. So, we're now building the new infrastructure. And that's pretty much, am I leaving anything out there with
no, I just wish you brought some pictures in, because you have some really cool pictures of that time when you guys were doing a smoothie bar and how awesome you guys looked back then. I mean, you still look great now, but it really kind of sets the vibe of the 70s and how, just vital and alive people were back then. And, you kind of really fit the perfect California surfer look too, but you guys were doing it. Like, I mean, were smoothies even really known back then? You guys had a smoothie bar. That was pretty cutting edge, huh? I think Bear froze on us again. He might have to switch his modem. We'll see. He's in the lab, so let's see. There he is.
I lost a little bit of what you were saying.
Oh, I was just saying, like, you guys were doing that smoothie bar back in the 70s. It's hard for us to even imagine how, like, that was really cutting edge back then.
It was. And exercise classes and, all that. It was brand new. And, before we even did that, we were following the original nature paths and reading all their books, Paul C. Bragg, all these kinds of guys, Pavel Arola, the real pioneers that, lived before me. And then, really an important part is that because I was taken under the wing of, in particular, 2 indigenous type healers. They were the real thing. They weren't new agers. They're real grounded folks, and really twisted my noodle as far as, my understanding and of the world, how it works, and belief system. I was able to then put things within a different perceptual context. And that is also what, led me into all the studies of Steiner and Walter Russell, and really jumped in both feet with an understanding of waveform mechanics and applying what I learned in, pre-med medical school and chemistry to what, alchemy was really about as far as a complete chemistry, which is where I'm at here in my room. But, a most important part, and I'm just going through all this because Alpha Vedic isn't just about applied nutrition and growing herbs. And I mean, that's very important, but, we really understand the principles of resonance. And Deb and I got involved with the original Saint Germain work way back before it became kind of new agey. And we're with some of the original folks that were still alive that walked and talked with the folks that were with Saint Germain. And, and we've had it proven to ourselves. But through able to, apply those teachings, the Ascended Master teachings, and it just fit perfectly with what the physicists like Russell, Walter Russell were saying as far as how resonance works and everything we're talking about. And it wasn't just reading a book, it was actually practices. And Deb and I doing it together every single day for about 35 years now, or actually more than that. And then observing that it's not just a think and grow rich kind of gimmick. It's really understanding how to discipline minds, emotions, and, focus in a way. And then you see magic happen. You just see it, and we see it over and over and over and over again. And it works just like they teach you. And then it's consistent with all the principles of waveform mechanics, everything that, Steiner talks about. So we don't want to just confine our workshops and our offerings to, just that physical level, because again, it's about us learning how to live scientifically. So when we did our first legal workshop, recently up here at the farm, it was about I am the living law. It was about, okay, law and protecting yourself from the predators. It's not just about shuffling pieces of paper. It's about understanding how they do things so that you can really get in their mindset enough to protect yourself, and, also have the right structure so that you can be left alone. But what really makes things is your understanding that Larkin Rose owns, which is, I will not bow to anybody. Nobody has authority over me. Government does really not exist. It's a fiction. It's not a living entity. And there are people, unfortunately, with guns that think they work for something legitimate. But if we are in the right resonant state and know how to focus our thoughts and align with those higher powers behind the scenes, we will not only be protected, but we will thrive and also create the world that we want to see. And in a nutshell, that is the history of Alfa Vedic. And also at this point, with the advent of the internet, because we didn't have it most of our life, we're able to network with people all over the world. And it's a very, very powerful thing.
You had the living internet back then. And we're going back to that. It's funny, we've been able to use this digital zeros and ones binary internet to sort of remind us how important it is to have the living internet. As we're doing this mushrooms workshop right this weekend, which is really a testament to the living internet of the mycelium, which is a great analogy of how we're all connected. And thinking about the science stuff too, one person I forgot very important about from Music and Sky was Alex Zeck, who came out from Austin. He really crushed it on his talk. He did a talk on science, true science and logical fallacies, and had a packed house in the middle of the day at a festival about logical fallacies. And it really got into interesting debates and concepts of of morality and objective morality, and how that, is a thing or not. And it got very philosophical. And but I just bring him up because he's 30 years old and he's really helping his generation see what true science is. And that's really what Alfa Vedic has always been grounded by. and what you do and what you practice through your medicine and, for 40 years and everything is really applying the real science and not, as you're saying, this neoscience.
And it's very gratifying now because Deb and I are seeing a whole new generation of folks. We don't pay attention to all the zombie apocalypse out there. They're just making their choice. They want out. So they're taking all the offerings of the predators in order to take themselves out and go to sleep. They want the blue pill. Fine, that's great. Actually, I should say the red pill because Tom Althouse actually said in his original work, it was opposite, right?
Yep.
And that's interesting. There's some significance there as why they flip-flop red into blue, just like in real waveform mechanics. We always say, oh, the new baby, let's buy pink for the little girl and everything. It's actually the opposite. So they like to invert, confuse the polarities in every single way. And it's no mistake that they decided to make the red pill blue and the blue pill red. But yeah, there are enough people, more than sufficient now to overturn this whole thing and take our world back. And so, Mike, where do you want to go from here?
Oh, just a hilarious comment. A gentleman was saying that's a pretty awesome bong you have behind you there.
It is.
And
it is.
I was saying that's an ether bong. You just
so should I fire it up here?
Yeah, dude.
Put 4 pounds of weed in it at once and torch it.
Just basically hot box the entire forest there. You'll have all the little animals like Anna's coming to you like Anastasia, looking good, bringing food. We will get deeper into what all of that lab equipment is as Bear really starts to kick off his video series. Might want to touch on that a little bit. You and Deb are going to be doing this off-grid elegance, which is actually going to be chronicling your experience running an off-grid biodynamic farm in the middle of the forest as you go through the seasons.
Exactly. And, what does it entail? What's it like living this kind of lifestyle where you have to provide for your own energy, provide for your own water, provide your food, every aspect of your life. And the reason why we call it off-grid elegance. Oh, okay. I thought I lost you again.
You're good.
Okay. We call it that because, we notice a lot of great YouTubes out there that I like to watch, people that are living off grid, but a lot of them, unfortunately, are living in real harsh conditions and living pretty Spartan lifestyles and out there slopping the pigs in the mud in the snowstorm. And, that's not our lifestyle. Now, we are very labor intensive. So it's, I get it. It's not for everybody, but we actually live very elegantly. If you come in our house, it's, very nice. We have all the amenities but we've spent many years getting here so that we could live in comfort, but then also, not be encumbered by, what you have to deal with when you live in civilization in the first place. It's actually the opposite of civilization. So
it's kind of humorous because we didn't have power this morning. I'm on grid, and whatever that means. Like I have electrical grid here in our little town, and we woke up to no power and noticed that it might not be on till 6 tonight. So I was going to jet over and do the podcast where you guys are at the farm because you never have to worry about that.
Yeah, exactly. And
unless the sun goes out there.
Well, we have options for that too. And we're also creating some hydro alternatives. Our river is down in an embankment, so hydro really wouldn't work well because we need a huge water wheel because it's a big river. It's not just a little trickle, so these little micro units won't work. However, we are finishing up our pond, and I'm going to create some Schauberger flows so that we create a little current there with the water that can be transferred into an electrical current that's, at the level of our operations here. We're going into a lot more passive water systems now, so that we don't have to, or just passive technologies, period. So, right now we pump water from the river, so it requires a generator, and, that's okay, whatever it takes. However, we have a fairly large house, and so we're going to be doing a lot of rainwater collection and and redoing our whole system for gray water. And it takes a while, takes a few resources, but you learn a tremendous amount in the process. That's what we want people to see. And you don't have to do it at the scale we're doing. If Deb and I weren't ambitious, in wanting to do what we're doing on a larger scale, we could have easily just disappeared a long time ago, got a little acre somewhere and a little tiny house and been completely self-sufficient even easier. So we'll be talking about a lot of those things as well.
We've had a couple requests of late to do an alternative energy show, Alfacast. I think it would be pretty cool. Someone shared on our co-op on Patreon a few books that I need to forward you. And I think we are at that time now where we can really start to explore water as a means for generating power in ways that maybe are beyond, or what Schauberger was talking about, or even beyond, with this kind of fourth phase and stuff like cavitation, right? And piezoelectric forces. There's seems like to me that we are on the cusp of a massive new energy revolution as we are exiting the Piscean age and into this new age, which I personally believe we haven't entered yet. I believe we're still in the Piscean age. I don't think we entered the Aquarian age till the 2100s. But that being said, those are just arbitrary years.
That's another discussion. If you get into the, well, first, let's finish up the energy thing. Yep. It's been right under our nose all the time. And anybody that investigates the buildings, that exist throughout the world, the cathedrals and, just immense architectural wonders, that we attribute to people that didn't have the means to build them and say that they built them. Well, those that were, around forever, they also demonstrate with anybody that has eyes to see that they were huge electrical generators, and they all used waterways around them. And of course, they were all disconnected so that the next generations of people that used them for whatever other reasons and claimed ownership or building of them, could just use them, in a much more basic way. So, and then you have all the new folks like the Walter Russells, like the Brown's gas folks, when they got into the Brown's gas, it wasn't originally for health reasons. That just came a little bit later. George Wiseman was using it for industrial purposes, for improving gas mileage and understanding that, wow, all we need to run our cars on is water. So yeah, all those things are there and all that is being brought out. Some of us are doing the best we can. At least number one is to be self-sufficient and have a measure of independence. I personally think solar, even though I use it and we have a very good solar system, I think it's very crude. And I will enjoy the day where I just, toss it and use my solar panels to create solar dryers for, drying my herbs and things, just repurpose them into other things. But, to funnel the solar energy into batteries and store it. And, that's really nonsense. We do it because it's what we've got right now, but we're actually quickly transitioning out of those tools, which are very apparent to us as archaic in the first place. So getting back to what age are we in? So if there's a lot of great folks, of course, that have put information out there, Steiner included, and he has a much more elaborate way of explaining it, which is too much for us here now. But we just did, if Beth Martins is still there, she has a wonderful workshop, the House of Free Will, and she graciously invited me to teach a class. And so because they have a lot of very knowledgeable people teaching aspects of how to protect yourself from lawfare, I went in and did my a different version of what we did on our workshop up here with Marcia. And it was all about resonance and using that. So we went a little deeper into that aspect than we did even up here in our workshop, and we got into the technology of the 7 rays. Now, too much again for this discussion, but when you understand the technological realm, and if you understand the 7 rays, which then funnel into the 12 constellations, and from there into the sacred planets, which are actually not balls of rock spinning around up there, but plasma projectors that are projecting the resonance that is originally generated at the hierarchy of intelligence through the, and qualified through the 7 rays, and then conducted or inducted, I should say, to stay true to how electrical systems work, through the constellations, and then through the 7 sacred plasma screens, we'll say, that then project us. If we know how that works and how that is replicated in our own biology, in the different levels, etheric levels of our being, then we can use our mind and discipline our emotions in order to create from scratch, or to dissolve anything that's, creating this off purpose in our life. So we went more into that, and we applied it as best I could in a short time into the application of, combating warfare, we'll say, or lawfare. And so I'd really like to get into that more. But the reason why I bring it up now is when you understand how these 7 original attributes and aspects create all the qualitative things that we experience here within creation, you are able to observe a cycle, a very real cycle. And also understanding what each ray projects to the earth and how it affects us, it will tell you exactly what cycle we're in. And it will also, I believe, and a lot of people, have been at this longer than I have, and it's come down through the ages, we are already in the final cycle of transmutation. So it's not like we have to wait another 1,000 years. We're already there, but all we're seeing is the crumbling of the Piscean age, which is, a combination of the 7 rays, and coming out of the 6th ray, which is, without understanding exactly what that is, into the 7th ray cycle, which is the age of transmutation, where with that understanding, the use of our own inner faculties, being able to transmute any experience, any substance into anything we want, that is our prerogative. And it's also our privilege to do that. And it's our responsibility. So if we want to just play dumb and be here as hapless victims, that's okay. That's a choice. But we're certainly not making things easier on ourselves. And we're certainly not doing our part or being responsible in changing the world that we live in. So the 7 rays, which have, been taught for many, eons, is really the basic understanding of physics that we all need to, wrap our minds around, so that we can start living scientifically. And in this realm, we'll say, there are 7 solar systems, or 7 rays for each of the 7 rays. And Earth right now, we are 7-ray cycle on the 2nd ray. So the rays that we experience are actually subrays of the 2nd ray. The 2nd ray is one of the rays of aspect. And this gets into, just the Trinity, we'll say. It gets into what alchemists understood as the Mercury, which is universal spirit, the soul, which is our individualization, and the embodiment, that we on the ground experience in order to expand the soul, that then expands universal consciousness with that awareness. So the first ray of aspect is the ray of will. That's like the Father. That's like the Mercury, the universal intelligence. And then the 2nd ray, which is love, wisdom, that was really embodied by the Christ. That then takes the idea of that initial will, and then it orchestrates it through the mechanisms of the creation. And then the 3rd aspect, which is active intelligence, then that actually becomes the intelligence of original idea implemented by the 2nd ray. And then that's what we see in our bodies, in the mineral kingdom, and the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom. We're the 4th kingdom of nature, right in between the heavenly kingdoms and the kingdoms below. We're the very important mediary role. So what's important to take away from all that is that, we're going through the sub-ray, the seventh ray of transmutation, that we're only in the second ray on a larger scale, but that second ray is all about love, wisdom, and that's why the Nazarenes mission and mission statement, we'll say, was so important. It's all about love, which is embodying the will of the creator into physical form, and it happens through love. And that's what you guys were all experiencing, music and sky. That's what is really hitting home on the feeling level for many of us right now. And that is the most amazing transmutational resonance, is that universal love. And we're not talking about a gooey kind of human concept of love, peace, love, dove, new agey stuff. We're talking about a very powerful resonance that is not passive at all. It is the embodiment of that original will. And it is, when you come into that level of resonance, that's where the powers that shouldn't be will cease having their way. So these are the things that we really want to expand on, but then put them into practical application, with the different theories of or practices with sound and light technologies. And that's also what we're developing here on the land, where we will have sound chambers and things where we can, create the resonance that can immediately impact, on the final embodiment level that we experience here on the ground, but also help people build that resonant connection. So there's a conscious link with where everything's coming from in the first place.
Wow, that's beautiful. We're going to put that into a clip. I'll tell you that. That was spot on. That just, agape is the word that comes to me when I think of the sort of, powerful love will force there. Actually, Pedro in the chat said that as well. And yeah, that's where we're at. It's interesting on the sub rays, you're talking about the sixth ray. If you there's some work that's been done with looking at the Bible and Revelations, and the 666 isn't the mark of the beast. The 666 is this is essentially the numbers that project when Piscean age ends. Piscean age supposedly started with the Christ. So if you times 6 times 6 times 6, I think you get 216. 216, so 2160, some have said, is when the official Aquarian age starts. If you tie into the nonsense of a lot of what the calendar is supposed to be, we know the Gregorian calendar, a lot of that's been manipulated, but it is interesting when you factor in some of the numerology with the 6 and the 666. When you do the math, it does kind of makes some sense to me that we are in, as you said, the fracturing, that is the crumbling of the Piscean, which of course the Piscean age being collectivism, being looking towards authority, looking towards a religion, versus what I like to call, in the Aquarian age, decentralized spirituality, where we are one, but we are completely individuated in our own consciousness.
Yeah, and coming out of the sixth ray without connecting that to a different label like Piscean, again, Piscean is one of the 12 constellations that is in an inductor for that original resonance that comes from the 7 ray level, and then further has to be, further inductance or modulation, we'll say, through the 7 sacred planets. So when we're talking about Piscean or any of the astrological projections, we're really talking about just one layer and not appreciating, the original forces above and how those are further modulated by the time they hit us here on the ground. The sixth ray, what we are coming out of, if you just want to use, that model, is it would kind of connote that idealism and tendency to be passionate about a certain ideology, which is also helps us understand why the religion of scientism is really acting out the way it is right now. rather than understanding the fifth ray, which is scientific investigation, where we are now allowing higher mind to penetrate lower mind so that we can clearly understand on a authentic scientific level. Then when we go into that sixth ray next, and it doesn't happen just neatly sequential, but then the sixth ray brings in that overzealot kind of idealism tendency, that would be the glamour. It doesn't mean that that's because every ray has an ideal and it also has a glamour. Each one of us, in fact, patients that I saw over the years, I always did a ray chart, and you have the three parts of the personality. You have the personality, and I would do it through a certain geometry that projects a resonance, and through radiesthesia, you'd be able to test to see what ray quality was resonating more strongly, because we're all different. So you have an overall ray personality that's affecting you, and then you have the three aspects of personality. Each one of us has a different ray in each one of those. And we have the monad above us, more our divine spiritual self, the electronic body. There's a certain ray affecting that. And when you understand those things, then I would apply it to more of a psychological understanding that, really appreciated where that person was at the soul level of the soul. And you could understand more than just hearing, their story, like a shrink would, want to know about.
Yeah.
So scientism now is they're zealots. They are acting out the glamour part rather than being true scientists. And then at the same time, you have people that are more into the glamour of different spiritual movements and, acting out more on that glamour level rather than understanding the true nature of spirituality and what it means on that scientific level. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, 2 points. One, that also the glamour of the 20th century. Obviously, we saw statism, fascism, communism, those like crazy ideologies, right, that people were attracted to. Makes so much sense. And then Russell Anderson in the chat makes an interesting connection here with the 7 chakras, the 7 rays. Is there an interplay there?
Say, I lost you for a second. I heard.
No worries. Russell Anderson in the chat is making an interesting connection here, speaking to the Native Americans and how they were really grounded in their lower chakras, as we know, discussed when they were on the cast. But is there an interplay between the 7 rays and the 7 chakras?
Well, absolutely. The 7 chakras are regulators. So first, you have to understand in our brain structure, the 7-fold flame that is an identical replication or hologram, fractal of the larger 7-ray force is in our brain. And you've heard me talk about this, Michael, in our practices. One of the things you do is you understand what color is operating in all the different 7-ray replications within your brain structure. And also, if you understand the cosmic being that is associated with projecting, they call them the 7 Elohim, that sit upon the 7 sacred thrones. You talk about that in the Bible, where, so every part of creation, and this is just old-fashioned Hermeticism, is a replication of everything above and below. So when you understand consciously how to light those up with your visualization and call to those higher powers to be there resonating with you, you will literally feel your brain structure like somebody just created a wormhole into outer space, and you're seeing very clearly, and you have a tremendous feeling of expansion through your brain structure at the same time. You're really activating that optic thalamus between the pineal and the pituitary to really start arcing full time and, conduct through the water again. But then at the same time, you do practice where you're using the heart, expanding that at the same time, but then merging them. So now your heart and your mind are all operating, as one single unit, the way they're originally intended. And you are taking advantage of all the different aspects and attributes of those 7 rays within yourself. And that is what every ascended master, which have been tens of thousands of them through history, not just one guy, all did. They got this final instruction, put it to practice, and they will say, once you get these techniques, once you entertain the possibility of these things happening in the first place, then that is when you have already consciously began your ascension. And yeah, these three first, I was just trying to glance over there. I think Russell had a question about the Trinity.
Well, there was a question, another question. I'll look in that. I was so keyed in on what you're saying there. I wasn't watching the chat because this is like so fascinating to me. And I've actually been sort of connecting with an ascended master that is really fitting my personality. It is interesting how these ascended masters, and a lot of people listening to this may be rolling their eyes. What are they talking about? Well, there's a lot of foundational, not only history, but science behind this, which we can go deeper into further shows. But they each have a personality connected to a ray and a role. Some have a specific role to play on this planet or in this realm as we speak. And it's really quite fascinating to me. I've been really diving deeper into this year and being called. And we actually have a number of people in our community that have been separate, not even like, through us, but have been called by different ascended masters towards their life's, their mission in this planet. Really, that's what it is. We have a soul's purpose here to do a job. And I love that about this. This is kind of go ahead, Bear.
Well, I was going to say, relative to the chakras, and now again, those are reflecting those ray qualities, but then they're also regulators, like in an inductance sort of affair, that are channeling these energies to all the different organ systems, the 12 systems that now are going to correlate with the constellations. Now you're back up at that level of integration again, where that would become useful to me, and also very useful if you're adept at using the resonance of colors and training your visualization, which anybody can do, is that when I was with a client, whether I was doing acupuncture, osteopathy, testing, looking at their blood, I was always really cognizant of what was happening in those chakra centers, which anybody can train themselves to see. There's different levels of seeing. You will be able to see hues and colorations, discolorations, if you really go there diligently, but you can also feel them on different levels. You can use things like tuning forks to, just see if you're feeling any kind of impedance. That's, it's better if you can practice surgery and not just kind of get vague intuitive impulses, but you have to start somewhere. So working with individuals, you can understand what's going on with them, not only by their ray chart analysis, but then seeing how that's playing out in the chakras. And each of these chakras now is going to have different hues, muddlements, of different types. And then depending on what you're seeing, then you can get into the level of, what some people call pranic healing, where you're now using a whole different palette of colors, and understanding how to use those to cleanse, to re-energize, to sedate, and things that are appropriate in a proper sequence. Because if you're treating the chakras, you don't want to go out of sequence, because you can kind of screw up the whole thing. But again, it all goes back to this resonance of color. And the final comment with like Piscean age and that sort of thing, of course.
Bear froze up. We'll let him bounce back in a second here.
Matter.
Bear, go back to the Piscean age.
Okay, so the Piscean age, of course, we correlate that with the Kali Yuga that we understand through Ayurveda. And the only reason why I mention that is because, people have different orientations, different levels of studies, and your studies are always, of course, going to be predicated on what you're attracted to, because we all see things from different ways, and certain things, will hit home better for some of us. So it's not at all incongruous with any of the systems of understanding that have been on the planet forever, whether you're a Walter Russell guy, you know, an Ayurvedic, or if you're looking at it more from, you know, waveform mechanics, or Walter or Steiner, you know, who would look at the constellations that are going counter to each other simultaneously to create the thyroid. And then one level the constellations are going one way and then the other way. And people say, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, it does, you know, when you understand the whole grand scheme of things. And the fun thing is when you start studying all these things, but then especially put them to practical application, you realize everybody's talking about the same thing. And the great thing about the Ascended Master teachings is they from day one said, you know, the time of the occult, the time of making things difficult to understand for the average person is over. Everybody has to understand this on a basic resonant feeling level. So they put out the green books originally that were so simple that a child could understand. And interestingly, even Walter Russell said, you know, you're going to screw this up if you're too educated. You know, a child can understand waveform mechanics better than somebody that's trained in, you know, engineering or some sort.
Such a deep topic. I've been wanting to devote an entire Alphacast to the 7 rays. Bear and I, you know, we've talked about this, Bear, of doing that. I think we've covered a lot right now, but obviously we've just scratching the surface. Shout out to Will in our community here. What does he go by again? The Akashic.
The Akashic investigator, or
no, oh no, I don't want to butcher it because it's
I love it. I can look it up.
It's really good, but he's been doing, and he's been at every Music in Sky. He has been doing an amazing breakdown series on this, specifically the 7 rays and its relationship to Walter Russell, black magic, white magic, Alice Bailey, Ascended Masters teaching, theosophy, and you know, all of that. And he does it in a way that's really fun. I was saying it's a crime that he hasn't gotten more views on these videos, but he's a little ahead of his time, to be honest.
He is. I love him. He's awesome.
Akashic Intelligence, I believe.
Yeah, okay. He is ahead of his time, and I've been following him here recently. And yeah.
That's it.
He's an art, you know, he's a real kind of professionally trained guy as an engineer, and so he's very grounded. Yeah, anybody, I'm trying to find it here.
The original, I love it how he says it. The original AI, Akashic Intelligence.
Is that it for sure?
Well, I mean, that's like his tag.
Okay, good.
I'll find a link and I'll drop it in the show notes and in the chat here, because I really want to support him. He is really on point with everything. He was at our law workshop, and he's actually doing it. He got his land patent. He's starting his farm. He moved up here. That dude is living it. He's not just talking it, and he's applying this. He's a great living example of what we're talking about in terms of applying the science to your life and doing it in a way that's actually effective and as a role model for his neighbors. So shout out to Will. Also, Eric Casano did a really cool workshop at Music in Sky about dreaming and lucid dreaming, and a lot of it was interesting. Bear, a lot of the takeaway was the violet flame. A lot of people were saying that they've been witnessing and having interactions with the violet flame, which of course relates back to these rays and into Saint Germain specifically. But that makes a lot of sense for right now, because the violet flame, you can explain this a lot better than I, really is the what we need right now in the world.
And Saint Germain, yeah, being the Lord of the violet flame, it is the ray of transmutation. That's why, you know, in our recent workshop with Beth, we just kind of focused on violet flame more, because, you know, there's just, when you get into the all the colors, now you can do surgery and really be quite versatile, but you have to know a little bit what you're doing. But with just the violet ray, you know, it's amazing. And when you're visualizing the violet ray, you know, we emphasize that you don't project it yourself. You go to your higher electronic body, you put your attention there, and then you have that body project it through your heart. And then that way there's no misqualification that can be tainted by your human side. that could possibly do any harm to yourself or anybody else. And it's going to be, way powerful. The last comment I would say is,
well, can I say something on the violet ray? Because sometimes
Yeah.
I go to farmers markets and there's someone with like a violet ray machine.
Yeah.
You seen those? What's up
Yeah,
with that?
I used to have one. I've built machines in the past, multi-wave oscillators, violet ray, the original Tesla coils, all those things.
Yeah.
And actually, early on, experimented a lot with medicine, and they definitely have effects, but we just learned again how to do more precise things rather than think that one particular modulation of a waveform or some particular force field is going to do the same thing to everybody or even be appropriated every single time. So, but the violet ray machine shouldn't be mistaken from the pure unadulterated resonance from the seventh ray. It's a lot different than that. And what I was about to say is when you get into all this stuff, just like when you get into alternative news, there's a lot of controlled opposition out there. So that's where the new agey stuff comes in. They want to get you into all the glamour and the spiritual pride and just the stuff that really isn't grounded as far in real science or, in a way that you can actually make use of it. So everybody's just kind of, doing peace, but, peace beads and Tinkerbell stuff and really not going anywhere. So, be aware of that. So always go back to the authentic teachings. And then even when spiritual groups will malign certain schools of thought like theosophy or anthroposophy, or even masonry, remember all those things are grounded in truth. And then what the sinister force does is they take those truths, they invert them so that you really don't have a chance of applying them in any meaningful way, and also are led astray and controlled through them. Mm-hmm. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater all the time, but at the same time, don't just gullibly walk into things and think that everybody's true because, they're couching it in some kind of, love language.
Yeah, discernment is key. Discernment's everything. That's why community is so important. Having an elder class that has the wisdom to teach us is extremely, extremely important. That's why the Native Americans had it so right, because they had this oral tradition with the elders that were the leaders that would help take the youth through a sort of, paces into adulthood, right? So that you could understand what real truth is, but through your own body, through your own sort of path of rites of passage and stuff, which I've said a lot on the show we don't have anymore. That's what Music and Sky tries to bring in some ways, through the ice baths, through the intentional meditation and stuff like that. But yes, community is everything. And someone asking, where can we find more information about Saint Germain's teachings? Bear taught me this. Really, the only place is the Saint Germain Foundation, the Green Books. There's the Lighthouse and Elizabeth Clare Prophet and all that stuff that came after. From what my perspective is, that's not the true teaching. Saint Germain even
it's all
warned about
controlled out. Elizabeth
Yeah.
is controlled out, and her late husband Mark, she's gone now too, but he was a little more authentic, but they were just trying to do their own thing and be gurus. And the first thing they said in the teachings is that this will never be outletted in any other way. And then they proved, at least to some of us, many of us that were around in the early days, that it was authentic. It wasn't psychic channeling in the least. And, there was plenty of phenomena to keep anybody convinced, but more important is getting the results in your own life. And then understanding on the larger context of the hierarchy of intelligence, university intelligence in the 7 rays, you understand that, it is a real technological based system. And we are living technologies within that system that are the capacitors here on the ground that are supposed to bring in that resonance and to embody that resonance, in physical form. That's what our job is. But we also have the extra bonus that when we do that, we are now coming to a neutral point between the polarities and no longer vulnerable to the polarity consciousness that keeps you here forever in the wheel of reincarnation. And that's what you call the ascension. And in terms of waveform mechanics, we could even bring anybody to an understanding of what the ascension means on that level. So it's not some kind of mystical thing. And as the ascended masters say, it is in fact what we are all here to do. It's the only purpose why we're here. And here we are.
And for those Christians listening that may be getting triggered by this, thinking this is sort of a woo-woo, mystical, new agey concept, one thing that I was really impressed upon by these teachings is that the Christ is firmly entrenched in the tradition of the Ascended Masters teaching in a way that makes more sense to me than the Bible, and actually is more in line, if you go deeper into Nag Hammadi and those texts that were outcast by the Romans, the Gospel of Thomas, and touching on Mary Magdalene, who's also part of this, right? Mary, they're all in there, and it all actually matches up perfectly with those books that were sent away by the Romans, which invert and demonize and all that. So as someone like a Marty Leeds or someone would very much give the thumbs up. I don't know. I don't want to speak for Marty, but understanding the real concept of the Christ and Jesus or Yeshua, whatever language you want to use, the Christ consciousness of the ascended master, of the man Jesus, he ascended, right? And Steiner has a take on that as well. But I'm just putting this out there for maybe some of the Christians listening that are thinking we're some sort of, we're going against, what their values are. Actually, if you look deeper, it's all in perfect alignment.
And what I highlighted in my talk with Beth Martins the other day, and I'd really encourage people to go check out her House of Free Will and all her podcasts. She's doing an amazing job. She was just on Crow 777, so that would probably be.
Oh, wow! Wait, Beth was?
Yeah. Oh, cool. So I'm gonna go listen to that. But one thing I did mention in that, since you brought the Bible up, is King James commissioned Francis Bacon, aka Shakespeare, aka Saint Germain, who is the only intellect within his court that could, really make good on King James' desire to edit the Bible greatly in order to make it more possible for him to have greater commercial control over his subjects. Francis Bacon said, yes, I will do that. And he did. And he put 9 levels of code in it. Supercomputers have been able to decipher 1 level. And that is where, the book, The Bible Code, that came out years ago. And it said, oh, that proves it. God wrote the Bible. Well, he did, if you consider we're all God or individualizations of that universal creator. But that was where they were able to show that he predicted, the assassination of JFK and all these different events. It's just cool, but that's just the rudimentary level of the code. The real code was all of the scientific understanding of everything we're talking about as far as the physics of the ascension. And in fact, not just the ascension of the 4th kingdom, which is mankind, but the ascension of all the different kingdoms. Minerals are constantly going through a transmutational cycle at the final stage where they become radioactive. And, that's essentially what we do through our bodies. It's what the plant kingdom does in its own way. Everything is this constant cycling of transmutation and going up the octaves of consciousness. We have, again, the extra ability that the other kingdoms don't, where we don't have to recycle back unless we choose to. So,
and the radioactivity is part of the life cycle, because without it stops the stagnancy. And what I love about Walter is he explains that the inherent nature of is actually to become one, to be connected. Actually, what scientism says is that everything's exploding and separating, right? And it's entropy. But what Walter says, it's actually the inverse.
Yeah.
And so
now he didn't like the concept of ascended masters. He had a different understanding. Of course, he was illumined on his own level, but he had his own blind spots, just like, we all do, even though he was very advanced. So the Bible is sacred, and it does have a very special resonance to it. And this code with the true laws of nature and physics, is what gives it that resonance. Not to demean all the people that contributed amazing teachings and parables and insights into astrotheology, astrophysiology, all those things contained in the Bible, the way most people read it just on the surface, or even have the insights to decipher those parables into a more concrete understanding of what they're really trying to teach us through those things.
Yeah. Brandon asked, Godfrey Ray King is the author of the Saint Germain books. Well, that was the Ballard, and that was the pen name he took. And but yes, that you're on the right path there. Those are the books. We call them the green books. They're through the Saint Germain Foundation. Unveiled Mysteries, and what's the other
Magic
one?
Presence.
Magic Presence are, I don't want to like give it away because of plans, but they'd be amazing movies. I'll tell you that. That would be like that.
And there are one interesting comment, final, I know we got to wrap it up here, is in those books they introduce you to technologies for people that are of a certain state of advancement. They just call it the electronic accelerator, that will spin off the rest of your human creation when you're ready, so that the full light can come in and and expedite the whole ascension process. However, you don't just jump into one of those things, because if you weren't ready for it, the incoming light would literally fry your nervous system. And that is also why here all of us go through our experience, and it takes a little bit of effort and also time to go through the sequential transmutational process. And so none of us should get discouraged if we see old issues recycling or bad habits surfacing. With a certain amount of awareness, you just do the practices rather than looking forward or back. And when you're ready, you'll be ready. So if we think that we're going to get some spiritual practice, like, visualizing the Merkaba and then we're going to magically ascend or something. No, it's about allowing enough light to come in. And if that was so that you could do it quickly, when you're not ready, if you could figure out how to do that in the first place, you just fry yourself anyway. So it's a process. And like they say, it's the journey, not the destination.
Beautiful. Yeah, we'll have to do more shows on this. There's a lot of details in regards to reincarnation, the dispensations that happened in the 20th century to allow for an easier path, if you will, towards ascension, which was needed for the bridge to this, to the new realm and all that. It's very fascinating stuff. And as Bear says, it's empowering because it allows us to see that we're each on our own hero's journey, and that we each have a role to play, and that we each came here to play that role, and we're all super important. It's not just mass chaos and spinning balls and cause and effect and chaos, right? It's like there's a specific hierarchy of thought and intention and intelligence, and everything is a divinely ordered realm. And the sky clock above, the waters below, they all interplay. And this is what Alphabetic's all about. That's why we talk about Hermeticism, Gnosticism, ancient teachings, archaeology, Tartaria, the functionality of the realm, and how this relates to our bodies, and health and wellness is a
bottom
great
line. Everything we've been taught is wrong, and nobody knows anything. Hulda asked in the chat, why would Saint Germain participate in controlling through the Bible? Well, you have to understand that at that time, if people like him got out with the unadulterated truth publicly, there'd be great consequences to pay for that. Just like right now, maybe we get canceled off of Twitter or something, but the consequences were much more severe back then. And also it was these, I don't want to use the term secret societies, but within these private research retreats where you had the adepts like Saint Germain, their job was to preserve this knowledge and formalize it. And it's done in many different ways. And this was a way where the initiates who were aware of the code had the understanding of the cipher, then they could get that information out in the open, even though the masses that are reading the Bible aren't understanding it. And there were, and still are, very real inner retreats where they understand the cipher. They can decode it and just read the truth in plain sight. And that's why Saint Germain did that. And Saint Germain and people like him also understood that the folks that aren't ready for it and are not ready to throw off the shackles are just going to be where they're at until they're ready to make the move. So he wasn't in any way
Rose again.
Brilliant avenue to preserve the truth and get it out for people that were ready.
And also one more thing, just leave it at this. And, there's been some Saint Germain discussions on, I believe on Tinfoil Hat, they had someone on, and they've had some stuff on Crow, but they do miss the boat on a few things there. But one thing that's kind of fascinating for the very skeptical mind is that there was a figure, Count Saint Germain, who was if I understand this correctly, Bear, was the sort of final embodiment of the ascended master, Saint Germain, who went through lived all these other lives like Francis Bacon, like Plato, etc. And that historical figure was very fascinating, was in the French courts, never was seen to eat, had an amazing ability to play music like no other, was very intelligent, could hold conversations, came from nowhere, and seemed to have lived for like 150 years.
He put out amazing works too in the field of healthcare and understanding. Like I have a manual, his original manual on palmistry. Now, palmistry is not some kind of pseudoscience or somebody at the state fair, that's going to read your palm and, tell you about your, romantic life or something. Palmistry is understanding that our palms, our hands, have more connections with our upper motor neurons, with the higher cerebral cortex, than any other appendage in the body. So as the light comes in, it is going to go through that prism of all the recordings. And, the brain is just a recording device of all the electrical impulses of our experience. So it's going to pick up those imprints. And then because of the connection with the cerebral cortex in the hands, though that electricity is going to be projected through the hands and leave maps of that experience. So, that's one of the things I took it upon myself early on through that source, is to study palmistry. So when I never told people, but if I had a client, I would look at their hands because I say, what are you doing? And I say, well, I'm looking at the shape of your fingers and palm, and it gives me great indication of your dominant glands and your basic, makeup from birth, and which was all very true. But what I was really looking at even more diligently were all these maps, because it told you a great deal about that person's experience of all their embodiments for all time, and what the probability of their experience in present times was most likely about. So
amazing.
Saint Germain is, has a very important role, and so did the Nazarene. I use the term the Nazarene because, people know that by different names and argue about was there a historical figure. And great book to read is A Messianic Prophecy by the people that also wrote, what was the first book? Anyway, really good investigative journalist, and it would tell you a lot about the true history. So probably a wrap up time.
Yep. Yeah, what a wonderful conversation. We definitely need to do more of these. I think people really enjoy them. It's great having guests on as well, but it's just tough because so many amazing friends of ours need to be heard as well, and people we're connected with. But I do love these chats we have. These in-house chats are amazing. Thank you all for being in the chat today. Thanks again for everybody who came out to Music and Sky. Everybody supporting Alfa Vedic. You can go to alphavedic.com to support us. You can join us on Telegram, t.me/Alfa Vedic, and you can join our current co-op on Patreon at patreon.com/Alfa Vedic. Fun. We had a meeting yesterday, and we're going to be bringing more merch back, which is exciting. So like this Illumina hat I'm wearing, Bryden Lando, Bear's son, my dear friend, is one of the best designers in the world. And he is going to put his creative talents into some new cool Alphabetic merch I'm really excited about. So we'll have some hoodies and some tees and hats coming your way. And as we launch the new platform on alphavedic.com, you'll be able to get the early access to those capsule collections. There'll be limited edition, custom cut and sew is what we do. So we don't just buy a bunch of blanks from China or something. He's very much an artist like his father and myself. They're custom cut and sew in Los Angeles, California, and are amazing. So keep an eye out for that. And we have lots more bears. So he can't stop tinkering. We'll have some products coming your way. Probably some of them are going to be just in the private, right, Bear? Just for the private community.
Yeah, because I can't mass manufacture stuff. We'll have some things that will move down to our Santa Barbara facility that I built with my younger son down there because it's approved by the Food and Death Administration. And up here we have in our new little buildings that are almost completely constructed now. We'll be able to do other things that will be available for members only. And then in this lab, and maybe someday I'll take you through pieces of equipment here and tell you how they work and why I have them. And in here I'll actually be processing everything from rainwater to minerals to plants that we grow. Into medicines that will be available in limited quantity to our preferred members.
Beautiful. Okay, guys, I know we've been talking a lot about this membership platform, but this is our sole focus. Music and Sky's over. Harvest is almost over. Still drying. Once again, we're a small outfit and we're doing our best. So thanks for the grace and patience on that. It is a very, very important topic. And plus, there's a whole process behind the scenes of going into the private in terms of the lawful side, all the paperwork and everything. There's a lot. It's a lot to do it right, and we're doing it right. So, but thank you for your patience there. We love you all. We'll see you next week with George Wiseman. Get your questions ready. I know a lot of people have questions. That's going to be a wonderful, wonderful chat. We hope to really elevate the George Wiseman discussion there because he's been on a lot of our favorite shows. So we'll do it the Alfa Vedic way.
Both you and Michael should be there with our nasal cannulas on during the whole thing.
I've got it right behind me here. I was hitting it earlier from After Music and Sky. I need to hit the Brown's Gas hardcore. And Bear, I would love to do the torch things. I don't know if you could do a live demo with the torch. But
I haven't put mine on yet. And one of the things I want to ask George about is I believe there's definitely a way to do deuterium depleted water, with his unit, but he's promising that there's going to be another little attachment to this modular system, which makes it so nice that will allow people to do deuterium depleted water along with the Brown's gas. So that'll be an amazing combination. But I haven't gone into the torch at all just because I want to know more about it and I want to talk to him about it.
It's pretty wild when you're doing torching the gas. It won't heat up the metal, and there's all sorts of really fascinating elements to Brown's gas beyond just what the machine AquaCure does. So
yeah, it'll cut through like any kind of welding torch, but it's not hot.
Yeah,
kind of like the sun. The sun is not hot.
Mind-boggling. So I can't wait for that talk. Thank you guys. Love you all. As I always say, get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go plant something, go for a hike. Mother Nature is our best teacher. Show her some love. We'll see you next week with George. And actually, as Brandon says here, a reminder to all our friends and family here, the universe is waiting for you to get off the couch. Just show up. Love that. Hey guys, see you next time. Give us a like and follow. Share it with your friends. Cheers.